It's finally happening. Apple has sent out invites for their September 10th event, where they'll be announcing the iPhone 11 Pro, iPhone 11, potentially new iPads, titanium and ceramic Apple Watches, the 16-inch MacBook Pro, and more. So let's cover the final leaks, and let's start with that promo image. Now, usually there's always some sort of hint towards what Apple is releasing. Here, we've got some colorful layers on the Apple logo. We heard that Apple would be doing a throwback to an old rainbow Apple logo, potentially that. To me, it reminds me of the iMac G3 colors, potentially some transparent series iPhones. I don't know, leave your predictions down below on that one. Otherwise, the tagline is "Buy innovation only." I'm hoping we see some actual innovation besides just an additional camera added to the iPhone. Let's start the news off with a leak posted to /Leaks, which shows upcoming cases for this year's iPhones. These are likely non-official, just a reproduction, although they do show the naming of the new iPhones: iPhone 11, iPhone 11 Pro, and iPhone 11 Pro Max, which is in line to the earlier leaks we heard. Also, one thing that I noticed on these cases, and in general on all of the dummies, by the way, thank you to Pitaka for providing cases and these dummies, is that the Apple logo is, not on this one, it's mid-mounted on the iPhone 11 Pro series. So usually we're seeing an Apple logo higher up. On all the dummies, it's showing up exactly in the middle, which I'm not sure if it's a precursor to Apple actually moving it there or if it's just random coincidence, but on those cases as well, in the middle, you see the Apple logo is mounted there. It would make sense for Apple to move that down since the lens is so huge and you want it a little bit more breathing space there. Without the iPhone being there, it almost could work, although it seems a little odd. And a case listing from Elixir is showing us an iPhone 11 Pro with a miniaturized Apple Pencil on the back of their new case. They seem to think that Apple will be releasing a smaller version of the Apple Pencil for this year's iPhone. We haven't heard anything about that anywhere else, so this is just a guess by them, although would make sense, and we rendered that up earlier in one of our scenes. And Mark Gurman of Bloomberg has published his final report on the 2019 iPhones, giving us a summary of everything that we know and a few things that we didn't. So I'll just be covering the stuff that we didn't because we've heard it a million times over already. He corroborates the Pro naming, so that will be happening, and the main upgrade of this year's iPhones is, of course, the triple lens camera. It will be a wide angle lens, which will be a 0.5 zoom, just like Samsung's latest lens. It'll allow you to step back in the photo and capture more. In addition to that, Apple will be adding a number of new professional editing features where you can stitch together all three photos and then edit it, step back, change the focus, depth of field, all that great stuff because of the additional camera and of course the power of the Apple A13. Of course, higher resolution is to be expected, and low light in particular will be improving on this year's iPhone. There will be significant video-centric improvements on this year's iPhone, where you'll be able to retouch, apply effects, alter colors, reframe, and crop video as it's being recorded live on the iPhone. And the main improvement of the iPhone XR successor, dubbed the iPhone 11, is a second lens, which will be responsible for optical zoom. It'll not be getting the ultra-wide lens from the Pro series. Also, Mark Gurman is saying it'll be coming in a green color, no mention of that new lavender color. Reverse wireless charging, where you can charge the new AirPods 2 in their wireless case on the back of the iPhone, will be happening, although not on the iPhone XR replacement, so only on the iPhone Pro series, and Max Weinbach is saying this will be called wireless battery share. And the most interesting part to me is that this will be the most durable iPhone ever. It'll have improved shock resistance and water resistance versus the iPhone XS. Apple is improving the glass with shatter resistance technology. They're also going to have an option of matte back feel or a gloss back, depending on which color you choose. And it's interesting that Apple isn't just making them all matte. Nice to have an option, of course. In regards to water resistance, the amount of time the iPhone can spend underwater will likely improve, and potentially the depth it can go. That's interesting. I'll definitely have to test those out. Multi-angle Face ID. Apple is improving the Face ID sensor to where your iPhone can lay flat on a table and scan your face without having to pick the iPhone up. That alone will be a day one upgrade over the XS for me. The new Apple A13 chip will be on all the new iPhones, and it'll have a new component inside called the Matrix coprocessor, which will offload some of the heavy math-focused functions so the main processor doesn't have to do it. This will help with computer vision and augmented reality, and of course the A13 alone will be an absolute beast, the fastest processor in a smartphone to date. Also mentioned is the new 10.2-inch iPad, which we saw leaked with the dual lens cameras. Apple could possibly be announcing that at the event. And he mentioned the 11 and 12.9-inch iPads. They'll include the same camera upgrades as the iPhone, basically confirming the triple lens camera. Otherwise, they'll look just about the same. And it's unknown if those will be announced at the event or later. And in a separate report by The Elec, they're confirming that Apple is sourcing 3D sensing rear cameras for upcoming iPhones to begin production by the end of this year and for release likely early next year. And Mark Gurman briefly touched on upcoming AirPods, possibly AirPods Pro, AirPods 3, with improved water resistance and active noise cancellation. These will come or be announced by the end of year. They'll be more expensive than the current outgoing AirPods models and likely with a release by end of year or early 2020. Also mentioned is a cheaper version of HomePod with 2 tweeters instead of 7, so inferior sound quality but a lower price point coming as early as next year. He also quickly touched on the 16-inch MacBook Pro with reduced bezels. It'll be very similar to the outgoing 15-inch model. It'll be the most expensive MacBook Apple will be selling, of course, the Elite series, and that'll be coming likely by end of year. And in case you forgot, Apple is still working on a Tile-like competitor to be integrated within the Find My app. Latest findings from an iOS beta show that it may be integrated with augmented reality and that it will support leashing. Essentially, when you leave it behind, your iPhone will notify you that you've left that tracker behind to go and find it. And a couple more details from a DigiTimes report on this year's iPhones that we haven't heard anywhere else. Firstly is battery sizing. They're saying that this year's iPhones from largest to smallest will have a 3500, 3200, and 3000 milliamp battery, which constitutes a 20% larger battery on the 11 Max Pro, 10% larger on the iPhone 11, and just 2% larger on the iPhone 11 Pro. So not a huge upgrade, but with some more optimized internals could mean at least a few more hours of battery life. And they mentioned that the 5.8-inch iPhone 11 Pro will have a physical dual SIM. Previously, that was only available on the larger XS Max. All other iPhones had the eSIM, but this year's iPhone, they'll add it to the smallest one as well. And potentially bad news for this year's Apple Watch Series 5, it may not be happening after all. A number of new iPhones and Apple Watches were registered in the Eurasian Commission, and in those model numbers, it was found that the Apple Watch Series 3 will still be released this year. That doesn't spell good things for an upcoming Apple Watch Series 5. Why would Apple continue to make and sell a Series 3 if the Apple Watch Series 5 is coming? Usually they just downgrade the 4 and sell that at a cheaper price, but apparently it's very likely that this year's Series 4 will be sticking around just with some new case options in titanium and ceramic, and Series 5 will be pushed back further with the micro LED display. And a report by The Information shows us a feature the iPhone could have had, which I'm sad to see now it won't. And that's a walkie-talkie-like feature that would use a 900 megahertz spectrum band to send texts to and from a phone without the need for cellular coverage. So similar to the feature we have on the Apple Watch, except this uses Wi-Fi and cellular connectivity, the one on the iPhone wouldn't have. And apparently it required some technology by Intel that they don't have access to now, so they've pushed that back to a future release of the iPhone. Cool to know that they've been working on that though. Pretty cool to see this. The closest thing to AirPower has been announced with 16 overlapping wireless chargers on the inside, 30 watts of charging power. This is being released by Zenz for $139 and $179. There will be a clear version, it's made out of aluminum. Whether or not there will be some crazy interference or it'll damage your iPhone, we've yet to see, but it's cool to see that at least a different company is releasing something like AirPower. Apple has released iOS 12.4.1 to patch the jailbreak. It took them a very long time to release, which is very surprising. So hopefully a lot of you guys got to jailbreak. You can still downgrade as of this moment, but that won't be available for long. And I thought it was pretty funny that Samsung released the Green Bubble campaign with a bunch of green bubble GIFs you can send to iPhone users that make fun of you for having a Samsung. Not sure if genius or a little pathetic. Either way, it was pretty funny. I also want to take a moment to look back at this year in leaks. It's been crazy, bar none, the absolute craziest year for Apple leaks. And for me, it's just been really exciting to go with the flow, and I love this stuff. I live for this stuff. Now, we started back in January where we first learned about that triple lens design, and OnLeaks leaked it. I didn't believe it at first. Then it went to that cyborg design, which seemed a little bit more logical, but still very un-Apple-like. Can you imagine this on the new iPhone? So we learned more about the triple lens, and eventually kind of made sense that Apple wanted to stick out in a certain way, stand out. And that's how we arrived here. I really don't think we'll ever get this many leaks in 1 year again. It's just been unprecedented. And as we enter the 2020 iPhone leak season in a few months, just want you to think back to this year and just how crazy it's been. So thanks for watching with me, I guess, and hopefully we've done a good job at presenting everything to you. It'll be interesting here in just a couple weeks to see how close we were, how much information we really knew. I always feel a little sad leaving the leaks scene, but it's of course the way it has to be. All right, thanks for watching everyone. Under 2 weeks to go until we see Apple's upcoming iPhones. So excited and to see all the software, all the changes they implement. It's gonna be an interesting month. All right, stay tuned.